aired at 3 p.m. today. But however, here's an excerpt from the conversation.
Why is Congress contesting elections on constitutional values and the Constitution?
Because that's the one that is under the greatest threat. Democracy is under the greatest threat, and democracy is represented by this great constitution of ours, which is an agenda for socio-economic transformation. And this 400 par slogan that was given by the BJP was because it was a cloak to hide their secret desire, now no longer secret, to change the constitution. And the PM will not say it on his own, but he'll get a lot of puppets around him, his economic advisors, his MPs, his candidates, the RSS leaders, to say that the time for Dr. Ambedkar's constitution is over and we need a new constitution. So that's why we've been saying consistently that this constitution that is embedded in secularism, that is embedded in social justice, is under the gravest threat by another term to Mr. Modi.
And it's now time to look at what's happening across the world. Take a look. Our top news in the international section: Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in Paris for a state visit to France at the invitation of French. Xi said, as important representatives of Eastern and Western civilizations, China and France have a long history of mutual appreciation and admiration. French President Emmanuel Macron is all set to urge Xi to reduce trade imbalances and to use his influence with Russia over the war in Ukraine. China's president is due to meet Macron and European Commission chief today. France is backing a European Union probe into Chinese electric vehicles exports, and in January, Beijing opened an investigation into mostly French-made imports of brandy, a move widely seen as a tit-for-tat retaliation for EU probes. However, the EU's 27 members, in particular France and Germany, are divided on their attitude towards China. Students at DePaul University in Chicago, Illinois held dueling protest on to show their support for both Israel and Palestinians in the war in Gaza. A row of Chicago police officers divided the two sides, and university officials advised the faculty, students and community members to avoid the area. DePaul University is the United States' largest Catholic university with approximately 14,500 undergrads, 7,000 graduates and 800 law students. The police have arrested more than 2,000 people during protests at dozens of campuses around the country. The Israeli military called on Palestinians in eastern parts of Rafah to move to a nearby humanitarian area. This order is probably the beginning of a civilian evacuation ahead of a ground assault on the southern Gazan city. The humanitarian route out of Rafah will include field hospitals, tents, and increased amounts of food, water, medication, and additional supplies. Reports revealed that armed forces had begun the evacuation of civilians out of Rafah ahead of a threatened assault on the southern Gazan city.
لا 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 ما في أمان، ما في أمان في رفح إطلاقا، إطلاقا رفح ما فيها أمان. كل يوم القصف شغال، كل يوم الضرب شغال، بس إنه هيك دعاية وإعلام للغرب إنه في أمان في رفح. هي رفح ما فيها أمان بالمرة.
ورفح حتى رفح إنه آمن، ولكن هذا كذب، هذا كذب وافتراء وهراء على الناس. هذا عشان المجتمع الدولي بيقول وين الأمان؟ هذا الأمان، هذا تفضل الأمان، هذا هو الأمان. شايف؟ هذا الأمان يا رفح، هاي رفح الآمن، هاي رفح. كل يوم بكسر فيها وبخبط فيها وبسوي فيها وبدنا نخش رفح. يا عم خش رفح وخلصنا من هالقصة هذه. خلص رفح وخلصها بيدها بالمرة. من قائد حرب إبادة، هو صاحب حرب إبادة وخلاص.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirmed that he shall not entertain Hamas demands for an end to the Gaza war in exchange for the freeing of hostages, saying complying would keep the Palestinian Islamist group and endanger Israel's security. Netanyahu also added that Israel was open to temporary fighting in Gaza in order to secure the release of hostages still being held by Hamas, estimated to be more than 130.
Contrary to these publications, it is Hamas that is preventing the release of our hostages. We are working in every possible way to free the hostages. It's our top priority. Israel has been and still is ready for a pause in the fighting in order to free our hostages. But while Israel has shown willingness, Hamas remains entrenched in its extreme position, first among them the demand to remove all our forces from Gaza Strip, end the war and leave Hamas in power. The state of Israel cannot accept that. We are not willing to accept a situation in which Hamas battalions leave their tunnels, re-establish control over the Strip, rebuild their military industries and go back to threatening the citizens of Israel in the communities near Gaza, the cities of the south and throughout the country. In such a case, the next October 7 would be a matter of time. Capitulating to Hamas demands would be a terrible defeat for the state of Israel. It would be a great victory for Hamas, Iran, and the entire axis of evil. It would demonstrate a terrible weakness to our friends and to our enemies. This weakness would only bring closer the next war, and it would push off the next peace agreement, because alliances are not made with the weak and the defeated. Alliances are made with the strong and the victorious. Therefore, Israel will not agree to Hamas' demands, which would mean surrender. It will continue fighting until all of its objectives are achieved.
Israeli police raided a Jerusalem hotel room used by Al Jazeera as its de facto office on following a government decision to shut down the Qatari-owned TV station's local operations.
This is a very dangerous decision against Al Jazeera.
The head of Al Jazeera in Israel and the Palestinian territories on Sunday slammed an Israeli government decision to shutter the network's local operations. Walid Omari says he believes the decision against the Qatari-owned outlet was political.
It's clear that they want to prevent from any others to know what is happening in this war in Gaza, inside Israel, in the West Bank.
הממשלה תדון היום בסגירת שידורי אל ג'זירה בישראל.
But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his view that the network's journalists threaten national security. His cabinet voted to shut down the network for as long as the war in Gaza continues. Later on Sunday, an Israeli official and an Al Jazeera source both told Reuters Israeli authorities raided a Jerusalem hotel room, which was being used as Al Jazeera's de facto office.
This is dangerous because this is inciting the extremists in Israel and the settlers to start attacking journalists, especially from Al Jazeera.
A government statement said Israel intended to close Al Jazeera offices, confiscate broadcast equipment, and block the channel from Israeli cable and satellite companies. It did not specifically mention the network's operations in Gaza. Al Jazeera has been critical of Israel's military operation in Gaza and has reported around the clock throughout the war in the enclave.
I think the Israeli government is feeling pressure by our coverage.
In April, the network accused Israel of trying to systematically silence it, arguing that Israeli authorities had deliberately targeted and killed several of its journalists. Israel has said it does not target journalists. The UN Human Rights Office also criticized the closure. There was no official comment from the Qatari government.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke at his country's annual commemoration of the victims of the Nazi Holocaust, vowing that Israel would confront what he called his genocidal enemies.
80 years ago, in the Holocaust, the Jewish people were totally defenseless against those who sought our destruction. No nation came to our aid. Today, we again confront enemies bent on our destruction. I pledge here today from Jerusalem on this Holocaust Remembrance Day. If Israel is forced to stand alone, Israel will stand alone. But we know we are not alone, because countless decent people around the world support our just cause. And I say to you, we will defeat our genocidal enemies. Never again is now.
Ukrainians in the embattled east flocked to church to mark their third wartime Easter as Russian troops inch closer to threatening some of the region's key cities. Take a look.
In Ukraine's embattled east, Chaplain Yevhen Savchenko is with the military's 93rd Mechanized Brigade. And on Sunday, he helped visibly tired troops at a temporary base in an undisclosed location mark the Orthodox Easter holiday. So many people can go to church and be at their homes in peace and freedom, he says, thanking the soldiers. This is the third wartime Easter commemoration since Russian forces invaded Ukraine. These soldiers only gave their first names. Yuri says he can't help but think of loved ones back home.
How do I feel? I want this war to be over as soon as possible, go home to my family and celebrate Easter with them. or with my comrades, but in a different setting.
In the absence of family, these soldiers enjoy traditional Easter pastries provided by acquaintances and volunteers. While most Western churches observed the Easter holiday at the end of March, Orthodox Christians, including those in Ukraine and Russia, mark it now. Fighting on the Eastern Front has worsened in recent weeks, particularly around the town of Chasiv Yar, all while Ukrainian troops wait for crucial U.S. military aid to beat back Moscow's advance. Meanwhile, several airstrikes hit the eastern city of Kharkiv on Sunday, leaving a woman dead and more than a dozen injured. In Kyiv, a local cathedral and folklore museum teamed up to honor the army's fight. President Volodymyr Zelensky called on Ukrainians to unite in prayer. People also marked the holiday in the war-struck town of Kostiantynivka, while knowing Russian troops are moving closer. I'm scared, but what can I do, says resident Svetlana. On Easter, I want to come here and get blessings for my Easter cake and eggs. Despite everything, it's a holiday.
Orthodox Christians gathered at the Church of Saint Porphyrius at Gaza City to celebrate Easter, praying for an end to the ongoing conflict. Inside the Greek Orthodox Church, worshippers lit candles and offered prayers for peace, expressing their hopes for a future free of violence. The church currently shelters hundreds of displaced Palestinians. It is the only Orthodox church in the Gaza Strip, which was hit last year in October by an Israeli airstrike, damaging some parts of the church. The Australian police said on Sunday that they had shot dead a boy after he stabbed a man in Western Australia's capital, Perth, in an attack authorities said indicated terrorism.
Australian police said on Sunday they had shot dead a 16-year-old boy after he stabbed a man in Western Australia's capital, Perth. Police said the attack had hallmarks of terrorism but was yet to be declared a terrorist act. Cole Blanche is Western Australia's police commissioner.
We are dealing with complex issues with this 16-year-old male, both mental health issues but also online radicalisation issues. He is known to police, but we believe he very much is acting alone.
The attack occurred late on Saturday night. State authorities said they had received calls from concerned members of the local Muslim community before the attack. The victim, stabbed in the back, was stable in hospital, authorities said. The incident comes after New South Wales police last month charged several boys with terrorism-related offences in investigations, following the stabbing of an Assyrian Christian bishop while he was giving a live-streamed sermon in Sydney on April 15th. The attack on the bishop came only days after a stabbing spree killed 6 in the Sydney beachside suburb of Bondi. Gun and knife crimes is rare in Australia, which consistently ranks among the safest countries in the world, according to the federal government.
Heavy rains caused flooding in eastern Texas over the weekend. From Dallas to Grimes County, residents woke up to flooded or damaged roads after intense lightning storms. ABC affiliate WFAA reported high rainfall totals across southern North Texas as well as central Texas, while flooding is most severe. Meanwhile, affiliate KTRK in Houston issued a flood watch for several counties, including Chambers, Grimes, Harris, and Montgomery. Meanwhile, in Houston and surrounding areas, heavy rains triggered high waters, flooding neighborhoods and prompting over 400 rescues. Residents remain stranded on rooftops and roads submerged in murky water. Many prepare to evacuate as the situation worsens. A flood watch remains in place, with forecasters warning of more rainfall and the potential for major flooding. Around 11 million people in Texas and Oklahoma are under water warnings and watches this weekend and even for extra days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, severe weather wreaked havoc in southwestern Germany, with emergency services and residents in a hurry to clear up the aftermath left by overnight thunderstorms, heavy rainfall as well as hail. The sudden onslaught of severe weather followed several sunny days and summer-like temperatures, catching many off guard. City of Frankfurt and surrounding regions bore the brunt of the storm, with up to 50 liters of rain per square meter pouring down within a few hours, flooding the streets. The weather is expected to calm down significantly in southwest Germany. However, there's still a possibility of isolated thunderstorms with heavy rains and storms cropping up from Saturday evening onwards. Despite a healthy winter, rainy season, residents of Iraq's historic marshlands fear a possible drought in the summer may perhaps kill their livelihoods, forcing some of them to make backup plans. Take a look.
This is Iraq's historic marshlands. The marshes are thought to be the inspiration for the biblical Garden of Eden and were named a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2016. Marsh Arabs have called the area home for millennia, and water is essential to their way of life. They rely on it to fish and raise water buffalo. Last winter brought an abundance of rain, which led to a considerable boost in water levels this year. But still, local resident Mahdi Hussein fears that will change come summer.
Every day, as soon as we wake up in the morning, we take a look at the water. Is it down or up? When we first wake up, we look to see the water. If you see that the water has increased, you feel at ease. And if we see it has decreased, we feel sad about that.
Hussein says he lost a significant number of his water buffalo in previous years when water levels were low. The marsh's fluctuating levels have raised alarm to local wetlands expert Jassim Al-Asadi.
The percentage of inundation is estimated at between 40 and 45% in the marshes. Can we maintain this percentage? Can we maintain this level? I doubt that. And I am concerned that next summer will be a dangerous summer unless there is a solid plan to manage the hydrological system in the marshes.
The marshes were almost completely drained during Saddam Hussein's rule. He accused Marsh Arabs of treachery during the war with Iran in the 80s and drained the marshes to flush out rebels. Many locals fled, but the marshes were reflooded after Saddam's overthrow in 2003. Around 250,000 Marsh Arabs have cautiously trickled back, but now they may have to leave once more. Bashir Muabar lost his cattle last year. If water levels drop again, he says he won't stay.
This summer, I still do not know whether to stay or not to stay. Only God knows. I'll check the percentage of water. If I see the percentage of water decreasing, I do not stay here.
And with that, it's a wrap. Thank you for watching.
I try and convert almost everything in a kind of a mathematical formula.
You should always stretch more than you can reach.
Listening is very important.
Because if you don't listen, how would you know what the problem is?
Everybody who's working in and